Hey everybody, so I'm going to do a review of Chapter 8. I'm just going to go through the review packet with you, so if you need somebody to walk through it, you can just do the videos with me. I'm just going to go through every problem, so if you want to pause at any point in time, you can. And as I'm recording this, you might hear the puppies, you might hear the children, you might just be part of the family. And that's just how it is, so it's good. Alright, let's start with the first one. It says find the sum. So right away that tells me that I'm going to add stuff. So really, I'm just combining like terms. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of highlight stuff so you can see what happens. Do you see right here I've got a 6x squared, and over here I've got an x squared. So at some point in time I'm going to put those two together. Then I've got a 12x, and in the second one, do I have any x's? Yep, 10 x's. And then later I've got some constants, so plus 5 and a minus 4. So I'm going to put all of those things together. So let's see what happens. Let's see, 6x squared plus negative x squared. What do you end up with? Got it, 5x squared. And then I go to the greens. So 12x plus 10x gives me 22x's. And then 5 minus 4 gives me plus 1. Boom, that's it. So you're just combining like terms. It's all good. Now the next one gets a little bit trickier. And the reason it gets a little bit trickier is this guy right here. See how that's a minus? That means you're going to minus every single thing. So I would highly recommend that you distribute that negative through to everything. If that's the case, really what ends up happening then is you have your 2x squared minus 8x plus 2. And then I'm going to write the other part under it. So I have to minus 3x squared. Then I'm going to minus a negative 4x. So really I add 4x. This is the part that they're looking for, that plus 4x. That's what I'm looking for in the final to see if you can do that. And then minus a negative 9 really means you plus 9. And so now I can put all this stuff together. Do you see how up and down, if it's hard for you to see it, that oftentimes makes things easier for people? So this is 2x squared minus 3x squared, which gives me a negative 1x squared. Then next, negative 8x plus 4x is negative 4x. And then 2 plus 9 gives me plus 11. There you go. That's the whole deal. So on your final, you'll have an adding one, you'll have a subtracting one. Again, the subtracting, make sure that you are careful with your negatives. All right, let's keep going. What happens next? Write the polynomial in standard form. What that means is you're just going to take all of the exponents and you're going to get them into the right order. So you're going to start biggest to largest. So when I look here, do you see how the 4x to the 4th is first? So negative 4x squared. Then what comes next? The 2x to the 3rd. So I've got 2x to the 3rd. And last, I've got 8x squared. So all you're doing is putting that in order. All right, next it says identify the polynomial by its number of terms and degrees. Now in here you have a word bank. I don't know if that's going to be true on the final. So some things you might want to write down on your note sheet would be these words. So I've got my nomials right there. That is by the number of terms. So how many chunks are there? So I see 1, 2, 3 chunks. They're not in order right now, but there's 3 chunks. So what kind of nomial is it? That would be a trinomial. That didn't all register, but trinomial is what that says. And then I look, what is the degree of it? The degree is always the biggest. So if I wrote this in standard form, which it didn't ask me to do, but it's good to be able to walk through that anyway. So I've got 3x squared plus 10, so negative 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared plus 10. So the 4th power is my biggest one, so I look through, is that quartic, cubic, quadratic, linear, or constant? Well, quartic is to the 4th power. Cubic is 3rd power. Quadratic is squared. We work with mostly quadratics here in this class, but You need to know the names for the others. Linear, that is what you did last year. So like y equals mx plus b, just x to the first. And then constant means it's just a number. There's no variable even in there. So how are you doing so far? Are there any of these questions that you're thinking to yourself, I should write this down on my note card because I know this might be challenging for me on the actual final? Then you should do that. All right, so that's all for classifying and adding and subtracting. Now on to multiplying. Multiplying is super important and one of the biggest things that we covered in this class, and so therefore there's going to be a bunch of questions on it. So we're going to start here. Do you see that it's a monomial? So this, I rewrote it so it was bigger. You've got a monomial times a trinomial. So that's really just the distributive property. You have to multiply it into everything. So 5n times n squared gives me 5n to the third. Then I see a plus, so I have to write the plus sign. Then 5n times 2n gives me 10n squared. And 5n times positive 4, so plus 20n. If it's helpful for you, you can put this into a box. It's just like a 1 by 3 box. So I've got 5n here, and on the top, n squared plus 2n plus 4. And then you can just fill in the boxes. For those of you who do the box, this works really well. And you still come up with, so n squared times 5n gives you 5n to the third. Then you have to have the plus. 5 times 2 is 10. N times n is n squared. And then another plus. 4 times 5n, 20n. There it is. Let's go to the next one. Oh, these are my favorite. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways that you can multiply polynomials. A lot of you use the box method, and so you might just want to write down on your note card or on your note sheet an example of this and then write box by it, because oftentimes if I say box, you're like, oh, I know how to do that. Some of you don't do the box, some of you just distribute, so you do the y to both things and then that, so you kind of end up with that little smiley face, or you use the FOIL method, first, outside, inside, last. However you do it is totally fine. So on this one, I'm just going to do lines, and then on the next one I'll do the box. So here I go, y times 7y gives me 7y squared. Then I do the y times the 5, because you have to multiply each thing by everything. So that gives me plus 5y. Then next, I'm going to do the 4 times 7y, which gives me 28y. And then last, 4 times the 5, plus 20. So it's super important that this right here, this is the part that people miss. Because if it were a multiple choice, it would give you the answer of 7y squared plus 20. But it's super important that you see the middle. You have to do the outside, so the y times the 5, and the inside, the 4 times 7y. So my final ultimate answer on this one is going to be 7y squared plus 33y, all plus 20. All right, the next one, I'm going to do it with the box. So again, don't forget that you should try these on your own first, and then if you need help, let me explain it through to you. Okay, this one I'm going to do a box. So it says 2x minus 3, and then x minus 4. All right, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 4 gives me minus 8x. Okay, then negative 3 times x gives me negative 3x, and then negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. So I get 2x squared minus 11x, and then plus 12. So again, a lot of you would come up with the 2x squared, and if it's a multiple choice, they would give you 2x squared plus 12. But do not forget the middle. So right here, you can multiply crooked. I would highly recommend that Unless you really feel okay just, drawing through on these. Most people do the box for these bigger ones. So I'm going to do it that way, but I'll kind of explain it if you weren't going to use the box. So I'm going to put x plus 2 over here, x squared plus 4x plus 3. All right. So now what's going to happen, see this x, it has to multiply through to everything. So x times x squared gives me x to the third. This box just kind of gives me a good organizational system to do that. Then x times 4x squared, and it's a positive. And then x times 3 gives me plus 3x. Okay, now you got to do the 2 times everything. So 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 4x is positive 8x. And then plus 6 as I do the 2 times the 3. Now do you see that stuff kind of goes a little bit crooked here? You can combine like terms as we go to the side. So let's see, I now have x to the third plus 6x squared, because I went right there together. And then everything's plus, so plus 11x and plus 6. So 8x plus 3x is just flat out 11x. It's not 11x squared, it's just I have 8. It's kind of like magnets on the fridge when you were little and you had x magnets. 8x magnets plus 3 more x magnets is just 11x magnets. It's not x magnets squared or anything like that. When you add them, you just add like terms and you keep those variables. All right, we're going to do 2 more in this video, and then I'll make another one. Let's see. Multiply the polynomials. This one I'm going to draw in a box just so you can see it. Most people on this one might just automatically come up with 16x squared plus 1. But I will tell you, if you do that, you're missing what goes in the middle. So let's figure out where stuff came from. This is squared, so that means I have 4x minus 1 here, but I also have 4x minus 1 here. So people are really good at getting the 16x squared here and the plus 1 here. But what do they forget? They forget this box and this box. So this box is 4x times negative 1 minus 4x. This box right here is 4x times negative 1, negative 4x. So don't forget, in the middle you have to have minus 8x. If you forget that a lot, then you have a note card. Make sure to write it down. All right, the last one. All right, so 3n plus 5, 3n minus 5. So 3n times 3n gives me 9n squared. If you want to write that not in a box, you totally can. Then 3n times negative 5 gives me negative 15n. Okay. Now, 5 times 3n gives me 15n. What kind of 15n? Positive. Okay, so plus 15n. And then at the end, minus 25. Minus 25. Okay. What happens right here? Those cancel each other out because of the plus minus. It's a difference of squares. So my answer on this one ends up being 9n squared minus 25 because of the opposite signs right here. See, you've got 1 plus and 1 minus. So the opposite signs make the middle disappear and add to 0. There we go. So hopefully that's going well so far. I'm going to make another video for the next 10.